Inglix. Learn English in the most interesting ways. Forget boring textbooks.
Imagine you have an A+ in English. You've spent years studying. You can conjugate any irregular verb perfectly on paper. Your flashcards are totally memorized. And, you've passed every written exam your teachers could possibly throw at you.
Yeah, right. You feel pretty prepared.
Exactly. But then you take a trip to London. You walk into this busy coffee shop. You step up to the counter, and the barista casually asks, "What can I get for you today, then?" And your brain just completely flatlines.
Oh, yeah, the classic freeze.
Right. You open your mouth, but nothing comes out. The words are in there somewhere, but the bridge to your mouth is totally under construction. So why does being a perfect student actually make you, kind of a terrible speaker?
It is. It's the ultimate paradox of language learning. You put in years of intense conscious effort, so you naturally assume the ability to speak will just, flow out of you.
Yeah, you think it's a given.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And when you hit that wall at the coffee shop, the immediate internal monologue is usually, I'm just not wired for languages. I don't have the genetics for it.
You completely blame yourself. The sweat starts dripping down your back. You point at a muffin, mumble something incoherent, and leave feeling entirely defeated.
Totally defeated.
But the source material we are jumping into today for this deep dive suggests that the problem isn't your brain, and it definitely isn't your genetics. It's the method itself. We are looking at a framework called the Englix Blueprint, Mastering Natural English Through Daily Habits.
It's a fascinating framework, really.
It is. And our mission today is to unpack this idea that fluency doesn't actually come from grueling study sessions, but from one specific ridiculously simple daily habit.
Yeah, and the reason this framework is making such waves is that it takes the entire traditional academic model of language acquisition, the endless memorization, the grammar drills, the structured studying, and it just completely exposes why it biologically backfires when you actually try to speak.
Wait, biologically backfires? That's a strong phrase.
It really does. It argues that we need to stop treating a language like a subject to be studied and start treating it as an environment to be absorbed.
Okay, so to understand the cure, we first have to understand the disease, right? Why is the old way, sitting at a desk with a massive textbook, so fundamentally broken?
Well, textbooks present language as a math equation.
A math equation.
Yeah, they teach you that if you put a subject in this box, a verb in that box, an object over there, you outprint correct sentence.
Right, plugging numbers into a formula.
Exactly. But human communication isn't a math formula. It is fluid, it's messy, it involves slang, hesitation, and cultural context. When you learn exclusively from a textbook, you are studying this artificial, sterilized version of the language that literally does not exist in the real world.
Oh man, that makes me think of culinary school.
How so?
Well, traditional studying is kind of like trying to become a master chef by only memorizing the chemical reactions of, baking soda and flour. You can recite the molecular structure of a cake perfectly, but if someone hands you a bowl and a whisk and tells you to actually bake one for a hungry customer standing right in front of you, you're going to freeze. You know the ingredients, but you have zero tactile experience of what the batter is supposed to feel like or smell like.
That captures the cognitive disconnect perfectly. When you sit in a room and memorize grammar rules, the ingredients, your brain stores that information as declarative knowledge.
Declarative knowledge, okay.
Yeah, it files it away as abstract data, like a historical date or the capital of a country. But speaking a language isn't just recalling data. It requires procedural knowledge.
Meaning action-based.
Exactly. It is a highly complex motor skill combined with real-time cognitive processing. It's a lot more like riding a bike or swinging a golf club than taking a history test.
Wait, let me stop you there, actually. Because I hear that, but common sense tells me you still need to know what a verb is.
Sure.
You need the ingredients to bake the cake. If you don't memorize the foundational rules of grammar and vocabulary first, how can you ever expect to put a sentence together? Shouldn't the textbook at least give you a crucial head start?
Well, textbooks give you a head start in analyzing, not communicating. And here's the brutal irony that the blueprint really highlights. Overanalyzing is the biological enemy of fluency.
Really? The enemy?
Yeah. When the barista asks you that simple question, your brain just doesn't have time to open up the filing cabinet of declarative knowledge, search for the present tense conjugation of the verb to want, Check it against the subject-verb agreement rules, construct the sentence, and then finally send the signal to your vocal cords.
Oh, I see. It's like trying to stream an uncompressed 4K video over a 1990s dial-up internet connection.
Yes.
The system just completely crashes.
That buffering you experience, that freeze, is your brain desperately trying to map the messy, rapid-fire sounds of a native speaker back to the neat, tidy, rigid rules you memorized on paper.
And it just can't keep up.
Not at all. Conscious effort is incredibly slow. Real-time conversation demands subconscious reflexes. So by training harder to remember the rules, you are actually triggering the exact mechanism that blocks your ability to speak fluidly.
The effort itself is the obstacle. That is wild.
It's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of overachievers.
Oh, I bet. Okay, so if the textbook is dead and relying on our conscious filing cabinet guarantees a crash in the real world, how do we actually build those subconscious reflexes? I mean, we can't all just pack up our lives and move to London to immerse ourselves.
No, of course not. The alternative to the textbook is what this framework calls real input.
Real input.
Right. You replace the artificial grammar drills with real stories, podcasts, and everyday conversations. The mechanism for growth isn't studying, it is daily, targeted listening.
Okay, hold on. I really have to challenge this. Just passively listening.
I know how it sounds.
Like, if I sit on my couch and just listen to a podcast of people speaking English, how on earth does that train the physical muscles in my mouth to speak? If I want to run a marathon, I don't just watch videos of other people running.
That's a fair point.
How does auditory input translate into an active motor skill?
It feels completely counterintuitive because we are so conditioned to believe that output requires output practice. But the underlying neuroscience here involves a phenomenon called subvocalization.
Subvocalization, what is that?
When you listen to someone speaking, especially in a language you are actively acquiring, your brain doesn't just passively receive the sound waves. The motor cortex in your brain, the area responsible for movement, actually fires up.
Wait, seriously?
Yes, it sends these microscopic signals to your larynx, your tongue, and your vocal cords, simulating the physical movements required to produce the sounds you are hearing.
So my throat is literally mirroring the speaker, even if my mouth is totally shut.
Exactly. It is acoustic shadowboxing. Your brain is silently practicing the pronunciation and the rhythm in the background without you even knowing it.
That is amazing.
It is. But for this to work, the blueprint introduces a massive caveat. You can't just listen to anything.
Okay, what's the catch?
The input must fall into a very specific sweet spot, B1 to B2 level English, which is often just called simple or intermediate English.
Why that specific level, though? Because if my goal is to speak like a native, shouldn't I be listening to native level complexity? Like, give me the thickest, most complex material so I can adapt to the absolute hardest version of the language.
If you try to adapt to the hardest version right away, your brain will simply shut down. This brings in a huge concept in linguistics called comprehensible input.
Comprehensible input. Okay, break that down for me.
Imagine I sit you down and make you listen to a C2 level, highly academic lecture on macroeconomics.
Sounds painful already.
Right. The speaker is saying things like, the sheer audacity of his fiscal irresponsibility left the entire boardroom in a state of apoplectic shock.
Yeah, if I'm a learner, I'm completely lost.
Exactly. If you are a learner, your brain catches maybe one word in that entire sentence. The rest is recognized as pure noise.
Right, it just washes over me. I might as well be listening to a blender.
Because there are no familiar anchors, your brain can't deduce any meaning. No learning occurs. On the flip side, if you listen to a children's show where someone says, the apple is red, well, there is no new data there either.
So you need something in the middle.
Yes. The B1, B2 level is the Goldilocks zone. Let's translate that boardroom sentence we just did to a B1 level. It would be something like, he spent all the company's money and everyone in the meeting was really angry.
Wow, that is instantly so much more digestible. Even if I didn't know the word angry, I could probably figure it out from the context of him spending all the money, right?
And that right there is the secret engine of natural language acquisition. When you consume content perfectly balanced for your level, you understand the gist of the story.
Yeah, you get the big picture.
Right. And because you grasp the overall narrative, your brain can subconsciously guess the meaning of the few words you don't know with incredible accuracy. You aren't opening a dictionary, you are absorbing the meaning through context, tone, and emotion.
It's like doing a puzzle where 80% of the pieces are already in place.
That's a great way to put it.
You can clearly see the shape of the missing piece, so your brain just fills it in automatically.
over time, as you listen to these intermediate podcasts and stories, your brain hears the same words and phrases in dozens of different contexts. You start to really notice patterns.
Without memorizing the rules.
Exactly. Without ever studying a grammar rule, you build this massive intuitive database of what simply sounds right.
So you bypass the filing cabinet entirely. You transition from knowing why a sentence is correct to just feeling that it's correct.
Which is exactly how you learned your native language.
Oh, true.
When you were a child, your parents didn't sit you down with a whiteboard and explain the past perfect continuous tense.
Thank goodness.
They told you stories, they pointed at things, they used simple contextual language until your brain just naturally mapped the patterns. The listening builds the database, and when it's time to speak, you're simply hitting play on the reflexes you've already acquired.
That is incredibly relieving. Just the idea that you don't have to force the language into your head with a sledgehammer, but rather just create the right auditory environment and let your biology do the heavy lifting.
It takes so much pressure off.
It really does. But that brings us to the execution part of this.
Right?
Because if I'm listening to this right now and I hear create an auditory environment, my mind immediately jumps to a massive time commitment.
Oh, sure. People assume it's going to take over their lives.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have 3 hours a day to sit in a quiet room and deeply analyze simple English podcasts.
The fear of information overload is actually the number one reason people abandon language learning. We associate fluency with a full-time job.
Which most of us already have.
Exactly. But the framework specifically warns against this all-or-nothing mentality. It introduces the strategy of micro-habits, recommending a commitment of just 10 to 15 minutes of daily listening. No more, no less.
Wait, only 15 minutes?
Just 15.
Okay, I have to push on this. If this comprehensible input is the magic pill that builds the subconscious database, why cap it?
Well, it comes down to how the brain works.
But if 15 minutes is good, isn't 2 hours inherently better? Is it like watering a plant? Like if you water a plant a little bit every day, it thrives, but if you dump a whole gallon on it once a month, you just drown it.
That is exactly it. It seems logical to do more, but it ignores the reality of cognitive fatigue. When you are listening to a foreign language, even at that comfortable B1, B2 level, your brain is burning significantly more glucose than it does when processing your native tongue.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it is working in absolute overdrive to match sounds to meanings, infer context, and manage that subvocalization we talked about earlier.
So it's literally a high-intensity workout for the brain's language center.
Exactly. And just like a physical high-intensity workout, your form breaks down after a short period. If you try to force 2 hours of listening, your active attention span will likely collapse after 20 or 30 minutes.
And then what happens?
The audio stops being comprehensible input and degrades back into white noise. You aren't absorbing patterns anymore. You are just hearing sounds while you mentally draft your grocery list.
And worse, you're probably getting incredibly frustrated.
Frustration is the real danger here. If you force yourself to push through that cognitive exhaustion, you start building a negative psychological association with the English language itself.
That makes total sense.
Your brain flags it as a source of stress and fatigue, and once that happens, you will find every excuse in the world to avoid practicing the next day.
Which completely destroys the consistency.
Exactly.
So the 15-minute cap isn't just a gimmick to make it sound easy, it is a deliberate biological boundary to prevent burnout and ensure you actually come back the next day.
Consistency over intensity is the golden rule here. The framework focuses on sustainability. Anyone, no matter how demanding their career or family life is, can find 15 minutes a day.
Right.
And the most effective way to ensure it actually happens is through a concept called habit stacking.
Oh, I've heard of this. Taking this new microhabit and attaching it to something you already do on autopilot every single day, right?
You've got it.
Yeah.
You don't need to carve out new time in your schedule. You look for the dead time.
Dead time.
Yeah, you put on a 15-minute intermediate English story while you are in the shower. You listen to a conversational podcast while you are chopping vegetables for dinner. You have the audio playing while you walk the dog.
So you're basically hijacking your daily chores and turning them into an immersive language environment.
Precisely.
And because it's only 15 minutes, it doesn't feel like a chore itself. It just becomes the soundtrack to your morning commute.
And the compounding effect of that is just staggering. 15 minutes a day doesn't sound like much on a random Tuesday afternoon, but over a year, that is nearly 100 hours of highly focused, perfectly balanced, comprehensible input.
100 hours, that's huge.
It is. You are giving your brain these short, intense bursts of pattern recognition, and then, and this is crucial, you are giving it the rest of the day and a full night's sleep to synthesize and solidify those new neural pathways.
Wow. So you wake up the next day and your subconscious database is just a tiny bit larger.
Exactly. It's the ultimate slow burn that leads to rapid results.
Man, that is so empowering. So let's pull all these threads together for you, the listener, who might be, tired of feeling that panic every time you have to speak.
It's a terrible feeling.
It really is. So what is the fundamental shift you need to make today? First, you have to let go of the guilt. If you are freezing up in real-time conversations, it is not because you aren't smart enough. It's because traditional textbooks have trapped you in a cycle of overanalyzing.
Right. You are trying to read the recipe while the kitchen is on fire.
Perfect analogy. To put out the fire, you have to transition from declarative memorization to procedural reflexes. You have to ditch the artificial grammar drills that just strip away all the emotion and rhythm of human speech and replace them with real stories and authentic conversations.
But remember the Goldilocks zone.
Yes, very important. You aren't diving into university-level lectures. You are targeting that B1, B2 simple English sweet spot.
You want content where you understand the overall story, allowing your brain to naturally fill in the blanks.
Exactly. Guessing the unknown words from context and building that intuitive sense of grammar without ever opening a workbook.
And finally, you protect your brain from cognitive fatigue by keeping it incredibly brief, 10 to 15 minutes a day.
Find your dead time, the commute, the dishes, the laundry, and habit stack a podcast right into that routine. Let your brain's natural subvocalization process do the heavy lifting while you just go about your life.
It really transforms language learning from a grueling academic punishment into a seamless part of your daily routine. You stop studying the language and you simply start living with it.
I love that. You start living with it. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with something to chew on. We spent this entire time talking about how passive, targeted listening can physically rewire your brain to conquer a foreign language. But the underlying mechanics, the power of microhabits, the danger of overanalyzing, the compounding interest of 15 daily minutes, they apply to almost any human endeavor.
Absolutely, they really do.
So ask yourself, if just 15 minutes of perfectly balanced audio during your morning shower can unlock a new language and totally change how your motor cortex fires, what other seemingly impossible skills, subjects, or barriers in your life are you currently overanalyzing? And what could you master simply by changing the media you consume during your downtime?
Inglix. Learn English in the most interesting ways. Forget boring textbooks.